The relationship between the presidency and personal profit has always been a delicate balancing act, fraught with ethical dilemmas and public scrutiny. Throughout American history, presidents have been expected to put the nation's interests above their own, to serve as stewards of the public trust. Yet, the temptation to blur the lines between public service and private gain has lingered in the background, sometimes surfacing in subtle ways, through book deals, speaking engagements, or the quiet expansion of family fortunes. But for the most part, past presidents maintained a clear separation, understanding that the power of the office came with a responsibility to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. But when the Trump family entered the White House, they didn't just blur those lines, they erased them entirely, then drew up a new set of rules. The old map of presidential conduct was tossed aside, replaced by a bold, unapologetic approach that put the Trump brand front and center. The family's business interests weren't hidden in the shadows, they were displayed in plain sight, woven into the fabric of the administration itself. It was as if the presidency had become just another asset in the Trump portfolio, a tool to be leveraged for maximum exposure and profit. We watched, often in disbelief, as the boundaries between business and politics dissolved before our eyes. Meetings that once would have been strictly governmental now included discussions of Trump properties, licensing deals, and international ventures. The Trump Tower and the White House became interchangeable symbols of power and prestige, their images splashed across headlines detailing the family's latest business moves. For previous presidents, such entanglements would have been unthinkable, a clear conflict of interest. But for the Trumps, it was simply business as usual. Only now, the stakes were higher, and the audience was global. The White House itself became a launchpad for a sprawling business empire, with Trump-branded hotels, golf courses, and luxury developments reaping the benefits of presidential attention. High-profile events and meetings were often held at Trump properties, blurring the line between official state business and private enterprise. Ivanka Trump and other family members took on prominent roles, not just as advisors but as ambassadors for the Trump brand, attending ribbon cuttings and business events that showcased their dual identities as both public servants and private entrepreneurs. Even Melania Trump, traditionally a more private first lady, became part of the presidential brand. Her film project, cryptocurrency ventures, and involvement in billion-dollar real estate deals all became extensions of the family's business interests. Exclusive clubs bearing the Trump name flourished, attracting members eager to buy a piece of presidential proximity. The lines between personal profit and public duty grew ever more tangled, as the presidency itself became a marketing tool for the family's expanding empire. At first, the public responded with outrage. Protests erupted outside the White House, and headlines decried the unprecedented mingling of business and politics. But as the months turned into years, outrage gave way to exhaustion. The constant stream of scandals, investigations, and ethical questions became background noise, and many Americans grew numb to the spectacle. Leveraging the presidency for profit, once unthinkable, became the new normal, a reality that seemed both shocking and inevitable. This seismic shift has fundamentally redefined what it means to serve as president. The Oval Office, once a symbol of selfless leadership and national unity, began to resemble the corner office of a powerful CEO. Business documents and deal memos shared space with policy briefings and executive orders. The language of governance became infused with the rhetoric of the boardroom, and the priorities of the nation sometimes seemed to take a back seat to the interests of the Trump organization. Ethics and conflicts of interest, once considered non-negotiable red lines, became topics for debate and negotiation. Congressional hearings and press conferences focused on questions that would have been unthinkable in previous administrations. Can a president profit from his own businesses while in office? Should the emoluments clause be enforced or simply ignored? The answers, it seemed, depended on political allegiance rather than principle. The normalization of presidential profiteering is perhaps the Trump era's most enduring legacy. Future leaders, regardless of party, will now operate in a world where the boundaries between public service and private gain have been permanently altered. Campaigns are already being shaped by questions of business entanglements and personal enrichment, and the American people are left to wonder whether the highest office in the land can ever truly be separated from the pursuit of profit. When the act of governing becomes indistinguishable from the act of getting rich, the fundamental question arises: who is really being served? Is it the American people, or the interests of those in power? The answer, once clear, has become increasingly murky, as the symbols of democracy are overlaid with the trappings of wealth and self-interest. The answer, unfortunately, is becoming all too clear. As the lines between public service and personal profit continue to blur, the trust that once defined the presidency is eroding, leaving behind a legacy of cynicism and doubt that may take generations to repair. In this ethically flexible climate, the Melania meme coin was born. Launched as Trump returned to the spotlight, the coin instantly tied itself to the MAGA movement. The Trump name alone sent the coin's value soaring, fueled by hype and speculation. Melania's public endorsement sent prices skyrocketing, drawing in eager investors. The coin's success was a masterclass in celebrity-driven market manipulation. Meme coins thrive on internet jokes and endorsements, not real value. Melania was the perfect example, its growth powered by the Trump brand and FOMO. For a moment it looked like another Trump Midas touch, but behind the scenes the real story was just beginning. But there was a catch, a big suspicious one. Beneath the surface of the media frenzy and the public excitement, something far more calculated was unfolding. While the world watched the headlines, a select few were already several steps ahead, quietly setting the stage for a windfall that would leave everyone else in the dust. Blockchain data, which records every transaction for anyone to see, revealed a pattern that was impossible to ignore. A select group of traders, people with uncanny timing, bought millions of dollars worth of Melania coins just hours before Melania's official endorsement. These weren't random buyers or lucky speculators, they were acting with precision, as if they knew exactly what was about to happen. In total, 24 digital wallets scooped up $2.6 million in Melania coins in the days and hours leading up to the announcement. Then, as the price skyrocketed with the news, these wallets cashed out, turning their initial investment into nearly $100 million in profit. The scale of these gains was staggering, enough to raise eyebrows across the entire crypto community. One wallet, in particular, stood out from the rest. On the very first day it made a jaw-dropping $39 million. That's not just a lucky break. That's the kind of windfall that only comes from being in the know before anyone else. This wasn't luck, it was insider trading, plain and simple. The evidence was right there on the blockchain for anyone willing to look. These traders had access to privileged information, and they used it to manipulate the market for their own gain, leaving ordinary investors at a severe disadvantage. The crypto market's lack of regulation made it easy for these insiders to profit, while regular investors lost out. With no watchdogs to enforce fair play, the system was ripe for exploitation. As prices soared and then crashed, countless everyday people were left holding the bag, wondering how they could have been so badly outplayed. The launch wasn't grassroots, it was a rigged game from the very beginning. The odds were stacked in favor of those with inside connections, while the public was lured in by promises of easy money and viral hype. It was less a community movement and more a carefully orchestrated heist. While the public chased hype, a few cashed in on privileged information. The vast majority of investors were left scrambling, their dreams of quick riches dashed by a system that was never designed for them to win. The real winners were always those who knew the outcome before the game even started. The meme coin dream was already tainted. What was supposed to be a fun, community-driven project had been hijacked by insiders, turning hope into heartbreak for thousands. In the end, the only thing that went to the moon was the insiders' bank accounts, leaving everyone else to pick up the pieces. Just when the dust seemed to settle, another scandal erupted, one that would shake the very foundation of trust in the Melania project. The crypto world, already on edge, was about to witness a vanishing act that would leave everyone stunned. Blockchain detectives at Bubble Maps, a platform known for its forensic analysis of crypto transactions, began to notice something strange. Their team of experts poring over the blockchain uncovered a series of suspicious movements. The Melania team, it turned out, had quietly siphoned off a staggering $30 million worth of tokens from the community reserves, funds that were supposed to be used for the project's growth, development, and marketing. Instead of being invested back into the project, these tokens were stealthily transferred into private wallets controlled by insiders. From there, the tokens were rapidly dumped onto public exchanges, flooding the market and cashing out millions in a matter of days. The process was so discreet that most investors had no idea what was happening until it was too late. As the news broke, investors were left reeling. Many checked their phones and computers in disbelief, watching the value of their holdings plummet. The sense of betrayal was palpable. People who had believed in the project's vision now realized they had been left completely in the dark, while the team cashed out behind their backs. The Melania team's response? Utter silence. There were no press conferences, no statements, and no attempts to explain or justify the sudden disappearance of millions. Reporters' questions went unanswered, and the community's pleas for transparency were met with a wall of indifference. No explanation was offered, no apology was given. The $30 million simply vanished, leaving a gaping hole in the project's finances and in the trust of its supporters. It was as if the money had evaporated into thin air, never to be seen again. Overnight, the image of the project's leadership transformed. Once seen as ambitious visionaries, they now appeared more like cunning looters, sneaking away with the community's hard-earned investments. The contrast was stark, a split screen between what was promised and what was delivered. When combined with earlier reports of insider trading, the picture became crystal clear. This wasn't about building a revolutionary crypto community or delivering on bold promises. It was about extracting as much cash as possible, as quickly as possible, before anyone could catch on. In the end, investors were left devastated. Many realized too late that they had bought into a dream that was never meant to be fulfilled. The fallout was catastrophic. Trust was shattered, portfolios were decimated, and the community was left to pick up the pieces of a promise that had disappeared, along with the $30 million. Melania's rise was meteoric, but its fall was brutal. The coin crashed over 96%, wiping out countless investors. News of the missing millions triggered panic selling and a death spiral. The project became a textbook case of meme coin collapse, hype-driven, substance-free, and devastating for believers. Social media turned from celebration to a graveyard of regret. The dream of easy riches ended in financial ruin and cynicism. Melania promised freedom but delivered only loss. For many, it was a harsh lesson in the dangers of unregulated crypto. Washington couldn't ignore the meltdown. Senator Chris Murphy called the affair highly unethical and introduced the Meme Act to ban politicians and their families from launching or promoting meme coins. The bill aimed to stop public office from becoming a crypto cash grab. The White House, however, stayed silent, business as usual. The scandal exposed the gap between old ethics rules and new tech realities. Calls for regulation clashed with a political family that played by its own rules. The Melania coin became a symbol of the battle over ethics and accountability in government. The Melania meme coin wasn't an outlier, it was classic Trump. The family's business ventures have always blurred the line between power and profit. From luxury jets to pay-to-play dinners, the pattern is clear. Political influence fuels private gain. The presidency became a platform for enrichment, not just public service. The meme coin scandal fits perfectly into this narrative. It's not an exception, it's the brand. For the Trumps, profit always comes first, even in the Oval Office. Melania's collapse happened as the meme coin market cooled. The frenzy faded, launches slowed, and investors grew wary. Without endless hype, most coins struggled to survive. Melania's failure was a sign. The easy money era was ending. Investors began demanding substance, not just celebrity names. The market's sobering up, and the days of viral coins hitting billions may be over. Building real value is hard, hype fades fast. The meme coin party is winding down. The Melania meme coin saga is a cautionary tale for crypto. It exposed the risks of hype, insider manipulation, and greed in an unregulated market. Investors burned by scandals like this are demanding more transparency and accountability. The Meme Act is just the start. Regulators are paying attention now. New rules may finally bring order to the chaos. The era of launching coins on fame and empty promises may be ending. The hope, a more mature, transparent crypto market. But in crypto and politics, the next wild story is always just around the corner.